Wow, this is a special edition that we're going to do today on Friday, December the 5th at 10 a.m. And we're going to show you our reaction to National Signing Day. We're going to talk about the conference championships, a quick conversation on the Heisman, but we will also be talking about our reaction to the rankings, which is very, very important because Sunday is the day, gentlemen, where they determine who's going to be in. So, welcome to Talking College Football with Luke. I'm Luke. You see Dan over there, and you see Anwar. All right, gentlemen. Let's talk about those conference championship games. First off, we got for the first time ever, number 1 plays number 2. Ohio State and Indiana will square off. And they're also going to be whoever wins this or plays best in that game, they're saying is going to be the Heisman Trophy winner. So we got a lot to digest. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. What conference? Let's start with the ACC guys.
All right, yeah.
Virginia and Duke.
Yep, let's get started. Virginia and Duke. I saw that Duke, and this is what everybody's been talking about, Duke is ranked lower than, I think, 3 Group of 5 teams. Let me see. North Texas, James Madison, and Tulane, yeah. Those are all ranked in the top 25, and Duke is not in the top 25, so there may be more. So there's a real possibility that if Duke wins that game, ACC does not get anybody into the playoff because the rule for the playoff is that the top 4 conference championships get automatic bids. It's not the top 4 teams. It's not the top 4 Power 4 conference champs. It's the top 4 conference champions. So, and that's based on where they're ranked in the playoff rankings. So, looks like if Duke wins, that could be a nightmare scenario for the ACC. We got Tulane above them. We got North Texas and James Madison. So, North Texas and Tulane will be playing for the American Conference Championship, and James Madison is playing for the Sun Belt. We're going to see how that goes.
Yeah, I think it's such a weird wording when they make this rule. Like, when the playoffs were kind of like not built for this. Like, when they made that rule, the top 5 top 5 conference champions get in, they did not imagine this situation. And it's kind of crazy that we're having this situation come up where an entire conference could get left out within the second year of the 12-year playoff. This Virginia-Duke game is coming on at the same time as the Ohio State-Indiana game. So I guarantee no one's going to be watching this. But, I'll have my 2 screens up. One with the
James Madison fans.
Yeah, well, James Madison fans will. And one with the Duke-Virginia game on. Yeah, I mean, really not much to say. It's just embarrassing for the ACC to have a 7-5 team get in when you have a 2-loss Miami that's clearly the best team in the ACC. I don't care about the records. It's clear to me that Miami is the best team in the ACC. It should have been in, but weird tiebreakers, and you have Duke versus Virginia. So I'll be watching.
Well, let me ask you. Let's since you brought that up, the Miami situation. Isn't there still a path for them to get in?
Yeah, there absolutely is, without a doubt.
Okay.
Yeah, the path is clear on that. The path is. It's going to come down to the committee's decision. You see that they're slowly inching Miami up closer to Notre Dame, and maybe the committee could change their mind. Once they get too close, they could be like, well, you know what? Now we have to value that head-to-head game more because they're only separated by 1 spot. So I feel like the Miami thing fully comes up to the discretion of the committee in that instance.
Yeah, and then just to add to that, I think that if it is that nightmare scenario for the ACC and they don't have a conference champion, maybe the committee could say, okay, this looks bad. We don't have an ACC team in here. Let's throw in Miami because they're close enough already.
Good point. All right, let's move on to the next one, the Big 12. You got Texas Tech against BYU. We know that regardless of what happens, win or lose, Texas Tech is going to be in, right? They've already beaten BYU. So let's highlight that game.
Yeah, sure. I guess I'll start it off. So with the BYU Texas game, Texas Tech game, I've been saying that BYU is kind of frauds like all year long. I think that's something that's stuck through, and they've kind of made me look wrong. They beat Utah, but still, I think this is a pretty simple dub for Texas Tech. They played in the regular season. It was just utter domination. BYU really had no chance. I really think that Texas Tech is a national championship contender, as I said in a previous video. I think they're one of the best four teams in the nation, and I think BYU is a good team, but they're frauds. They're not a serious championship contender. If they lose this game, I don't think they're making the playoffs, and I think Big 12 gets that one team in, that being Texas Tech. If BYU does win, I see a path. I mean, they'll both get in. They'll both get in. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that if BYU wins, then they're both in. Um, and honestly, if we look back at a few weeks ago when we did our show before the BYU Texas Tech game, my prediction was that, okay, I don't know who's going to win the game, but I think whoever wins this is going to lose the conference championship. I think they're going to rematch and they're going to play each other again. And then I said whoever loses is going to win the conference championship. So that's still in play, and I kind of hope that doesn't happen as a Notre Dame fan, because if BYU wins, they're almost certainly going to jump Notre Dame. So I mean, this is going to be an interesting game. Texas Tech has looked a lot more dominant. I've been higher on BYU than you were, Anwar, this year. I think I called BYU to win that first game, and I said Texas Tech would win the second, and if not, it would be the other way around. Yeah, I think Texas Tech is just shown that they're head and shoulders above the rest of the Big 12.
So we need to go back and pull up those tapes from about 4 games. It was probably, I think, week 8. If we look at week 8,
Yeah,
we'll see
around
your
there.
pick. Okay. And that's why Dan is one of the boldest analysts there is out there. Way to go, Dan. All
It's
right.
definitely going to be closer than it was in the last
I gotta tell
first
you, though,
match.
the ramifications, if BYU wins that bad boy, all of a sudden Notre Dame and Miami better watch out, because there's some
Yep,
things
and then
that are
BYU.
being played that nobody could have seen. I mean, it could
Yeah,
get
they
really
could both get left
crazy.
out in that instance. They could both
Yeah.
get left out in that instance.
Let's finish this
And then
up, and we'll
BYU's.
talk about those scenarios, because that's what's pretty good. So now we got the SEC. Is another one with the impact on the 12 teams that get selected. You got
Yep.
Georgia and you got Alabama. So, Dan, why don't you lead us off, since Amar went the last time?
All right, yeah. So we already saw, this is another game we saw earlier in the season. We saw Alabama beat Georgia. So now it's time for the rematch, which is in Atlanta. So that could be some help to Georgia, but you never know with the Crimson Tide faithful. I'm sure there will be a lot of Alabama fans there. But yeah, I mean, Georgia is ranked number 4, I believe. Yeah, number 3, and Alabama's sitting at number 9. Number 3, yeah. And Alabama's at number 9. We'll see if Georgia kind of has that formula now, blueprint on how to beat Alabama. We've seen Oregon do it, and we saw Florida State do it at the beginning of the year. So maybe they take that. They know kind of their one-dimensional offense, and see if they'll take advantage of that. But who knows? Alabama seems to have the formula to crack Georgia too. I think that Kirby Smart is 1-7 against Alabama in his career as a head coach at Georgia.
If you exclude those games and you take in the totality, he's 1-11 from what I saw. Does that sound about right to you guys? 1-11 against them?
Could be.
Yeah, it's been utter domination.
Okay, maybe I heard it wrong. Maybe it was 7, but I thought it was 1-11. I have to go back and look at the history on that. Anwar?
Yeah, so I gotta echo like a lot of what Dan said. They did meet in the regular season. The thing is, when Georgia plays Alabama, especially this last couple of years, I feel like Georgia's actually been the better team. It's kind of been like, I would compare the Georgia-Alabama situation to the Ohio State-Michigan situation the last couple of years. I feel like Georgia has been the better team, but they have some type of mental block. They're just getting out-coached, and I think it really is like, it's a mental game, and I feel like just when Georgia goes down to Bama, they kind of expect to lose, because that's what's been happening. And it was the same thing with Ohio State, Michigan. Like, if Ohio State goes down before this year, they just like get this thing in their mind and say, "Oh my God, we're gonna lose." So you guys have been bringing up the stats. Kirby Smart being 1-11, but so shout out to my favorite YouTuber Uncle Lou again. He's a Georgia fan. Brought me up on this stat. Apparently, that one win, Georgia is undefeated against Alabama in same season rematches, which I guess that means they're 1-0. So, however, Bama is undefeated against Georgia in the SEC Championship game. So either way, one of these streaks is going to end. Somehow, that Georgia's one win against Bama was in the same season rematch. So yeah, it could be interesting. I think it's going to be a really good game. And in terms of my prediction, I just think Georgia's the better team. And with this same season rematch things, you kind of get used. Like Georgia's been progressing. I'm actually going to take Georgia in this one.
Yeah, I didn't make my pick, but I agree. I think Georgia in this one. Similar to how I said with the Big 12 a few weeks ago, I think that they're going to come back for revenge.
You're making it worse. I'm gonna go back, guys. After we do this, these next three conference games, I'll go back and ask you for your picks. Okay. So if you don't want to give your picks while you're doing the analysis of the game, that's fine. I'll give you another opportunity to go through, and you just listen. No long scenarios. You're just gonna say Georgia or Alabama. You don't have to go into any other detail. All right. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the Big 12. Excuse me, Big 10. We got number one Ohio State, number one Indiana. What do you guys see? What do you think?
Yeah, I'll start off with this one as an Ohio State fan. So with this game, it's you know, first of all, one thing, whoever like I don't know if everybody our viewers have been paying attention to college football like really deeply. I'm sure Indiana's not a team you've been watching, right? It's Indiana. They're the bottom of the Big Ten. This is not this is not your typical Indiana team. Like this is not even your Indiana team from last year. I feel like 2025 Indiana is miles ahead of 2024 Indiana. And even as an Ohio State fan, I'm definitely worried about this game. Indiana's kind of one of these teams where they don't have crazy talent, but they bring in pieces that fit their scheme perfectly. They run this little RPO game, and they brought in the perfect quarterback for this. They brought in the perfect wide receivers for this. They play fast, and Ohio State definitely has the talent advantage. However, like I feel like Indiana's like players fit their scheme perfectly. However, like we were talking about picks, I'm still gonna go with my Bucks because I feel like Ohio State just no weaknesses. But also Indiana is one of these teams with no weaknesses. But when you have two teams with no weaknesses, you got to go with the team with more talent. And Ohio State has more talent. However, this is going to be a close game, and I'm definitely nervous. So don't underestimate Indiana. I'm still taking Ohio State.
Yeah. I'd really like to say that Indiana's going to win this game. I think it'd be really good for college football. I like to see the underdog win, especially after what they did to Illinois. Like, okay, at least it was the Big Ten champ who destroyed Illinois like that. I could say that if they win, but I don't know. Ohio State's not really been tested at all this year, and I don't think that's really a weakness for them. I think it's just that that's how good they are. Indiana, you've seen them blow out a lot of teams, but you could also see them only win by 5 against Iowa, and I think that was a last second win too. And Iowa's a good defensive team. They kept them. It was 20-15. Ohio State's better than Iowa. I think Ohio State's weaknesses are better than Iowa's strengths. So I think Indiana comes away with this win. Or sorry, Ohio State. Ohio State comes away with it. But yeah, well, we'll see this weekend.
Don't get it wrong though. Indiana is still definitely a national championship contender. Indiana's legit a top 4 team, and even if Ohio State wins this game, I could see Indiana making a deep run in the playoffs.
Yeah, me too. And then one more thing about the game though. It's in Indianapolis. Same thing might not mean much. They're in their home state, not too far from Bloomington.
Yeah, it's so let's put that into perspective. It's a 2.5-hour drive from Columbus to Indianapolis, and it's I think a 90-minute drive from Bloomington, maybe an hour to 90-minute drive from Bloomington to Indianapolis. Having attended the games there, it doesn't matter. The Buckeyes travel. They'll have half the tickets. They had 20,000 people at the Michigan game. Okay, so I think they'll be okay. I do want to give just a little bit of perspective on that. There's the most significant difference are on the defenses. Ohio State plays about 25% man, 75% zone, where Indiana is 90% zone, 10% man. And so where that comes into play is overall team speed. Ohio State's just faster at the skill positions. Vaught is a slot receiver, which he's not a top end guy. You got top end guys on all three of the wide receivers for Ohio State in Ennis, Smith, and Tate. So Cooper is not a blazer. As a result, when Ohio State's in that man, they can just face up against those guys. They're not going to run away from them. Ohio State DBs are extremely fast as well. So I think that's the one thing to consider. I think that might be the difference in the game. I like you. I think it's going to be a close game too. And, I just want to see both teams come out healthy. All right, so let's go ahead and let's move on to the AAC, where we've got UNT and Tulane. Now, here's what's funny about this game. Both of those head coaches, they're gone. they've taken other jobs. So, any analysis that you guys want to provide on that?
That I don't know. Well, how does that affect the coaches? Like, are they coaching or no?
They're coaching.
Yeah, they're coaching.
They're coaching.
Okay. It'll be interesting to see how that actually affects the team morale. Like, does it cancel out because it's for both teams, or does one team take it harder than the other? It's just an odd situation. They know they're coaching. I guess it's nice of the schools to let them still coach. I could see why they wouldn't have wanted to, but also they're making a playoff run, and how many opportunities do you get for that in the group of five?
Especially the UNT coach, is he the one that's going to Oklahoma State?
Yeah, you got one going to Oklahoma State, one going to Florida. So
yeah, Tulane's going to Florida, and the Oklahoma State is Eric Morris, right? He's going to Oklahoma State, so he's not going to be getting to the playoffs anytime soon. So I'm sure he's going to want to bring it. So, okay, Onward, it's your turn.
Dang. Like I said, my underrated coaching hire from yesterday was Eric Morris. So, like you guys talking about, this is going to be an interesting game just for the fact that, like, the two coaches are gone. And we've seen, like, other Power 5 schools hire coaches go into to the playoffs. I'm talking about Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin. They're not letting him coach. So, I don't think in the future, I don't think North Texas and Tulane is going to have to worry about Florida and Oklahoma State. So there's really no, like, we need to hide the playbook so they don't, like, so Oklahoma State doesn't know, like, what North Texas is doing next year. I think both teams will be playing at full efficiency. These players in the Group 5, they're not going to get this opportunity to fight for a playoff spot like it is now. Everything's going to be on the line in this game. And I don't think, especially since both coaches are gone after this year, I don't think that the coaching new hiring will affect either of these teams, because at this level, it's about pride. And both these teams will be fighting for that pride. And, that's all I really got to say about the game. So, yeah, it is a playoff game.
And then finally, we've got the Sun Belt. Troy versus who are they playing? JMU, right? So
yeah.
The Dukes, JMU, they're ranked number 25. So, Anwar, can you lead off on that one?
I gotta say, these are. I have seen Tulane and North Texas play. I have not watched a second of JMU football or Troy football this year.
You and a lot of other people. Don't feel bad.
Yeah. But JMU, like we're talking about these coaches going, It's another situation where their coach is taking over at UCLA next year, which is a cross country jump, and I don't really know this. I'm gonna take JMU.
Okay, Dan,
I'm gonna
what you got?
Yeah,
I don't know what
I'd love to say I've spent a lot of time analyzing the tape, but I haven't seen these two teams. We did talk about their coach for JMU leaving. Um, I believe he's taking a. We talked about that yesterday. I think he is going to where is that? UCLA.
UCLA, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so
Um,
lightning round. You get one word. Okay, this is a pick 'em. We'll start with the Sun Belt. Who wins it? Anwar,
JMU.
Dan,
JMU.
the AAC. Dan, who wins it?
I say North Texas.
Anwar,
North Texas.
no love for Tulane, huh? Okay. Anwar, the ACC. Who wins it? Virginia or Duke?
Virginia.
Dan,
Virginia.
you guys are wrong. The Big 12. Anwar, Dan, who wins it? Texas Tech or BYU?
Texas Tech. You know what? Yeah, Texas Tech.
You just said
Yeah, I
BYU
said-
earlier.
No. No. I said. I thought that weeks ago. That's what I called. I'm riding. I'm playing both sides of the fence, so that way I always come out on
Yes.
top.
Who'd you take? Who are you taking right now?
I'll say Texas Tech.
All right, Anwar.
Easily Texas Tech. No doubt.
All right, here we go. We're getting into the meat. Anwar, Georgia or Alabama for the SEC?
Them dogs.
Okay, Dan,
Yeah, give me Georgia.
the big one. Dan, let you go first.
say
Indiana
Ohio
or
State.
Ohio State?
Ohio State Buckeyes.
Anwar,
Wait.
IO. All right, gentlemen, let's move on to our next subject. Next, we're going to talk about the most recent reactions. And I sent that to you earlier today, but I'm sure you got it up. I think the big change is the fact that Notre Dame is down 1, Alabama is up 1. Texas A&M, they only dropped 4 to number 7. BYU is still at 11 and Miami's at 12. So, your thoughts on that?
Let's see. Well, I'll start. I don't know. I think it's cowardly by the committee to drop Notre Dame under Alabama. After Notre Dame blew out Stanford and Alabama struggled against Auburn and almost lost. I think they did it as a cop out. So if they need to in the future, they're gonna be able to put in Miami and have them jump Notre Dame, and not have them also jump Alabama. So, like we said earlier, BYU has that game against Texas Tech. If they win, they're almost 100% in. I wouldn't even be able to argue against that. Like BYU, if they beat Texas Tech, they should jump Notre Dame. So if the other thing is, say BYU loses to Texas Tech, then Notre Dame and Miami are ranked next to each other. I don't know if that's a good scenario for the Fighting Irish. The committee it'll be under a microscope. Those two teams side by side, the only same record. The only difference is that one team beat the other team in the first week of the season. I just don't think you can make an argument for Notre Dame being above Miami if they're side by side like that. So that's not a good scenario. I think that it could work out if the committee decides, oh no, we need Notre Dame in there. They could drop Alabama after a loss, drop them down 1. I think they'll still stay in the playoff, but maybe Alabama falls to number 10, Notre Dame falls or rises to number 9, and then Miami stays at. They would probably jump to 11 if BYU loses in that scenario. If BYU wins, then it's irrelevant. So a lot of words there, but I think best case scenario, if we're going from a Notre Dame standpoint, BYU loses, Alabama loses, and probably also Duke loses. You'd probably want a regular ACC team, because I don't think ACC is getting 2 teams in.
Okay. Anwar?
Yeah, so what I think, like, from the Alabama perspective, a lot of questions have been asked about if they do lose this SEC championship game. They'll have 3 losses, right? And we've seen from the playoff committee that usually that cutoff between making the playoffs is 2 losses and 3 losses, right? And I think one of these big things is that because Notre Dame is not in a conference, they don't even have the chance to take that 3 loss. And obviously that hurts them. I know, like, it's the whole thing, like, oh, we're making a lot of money from not being in a conference, but like when you come in this type of scenario where you have the head to head, which has to matter over anything. Like, I genuinely do think that Notre Dame is playing better football than Miami right now, and I do think that Notre Dame is without a doubt a top 10 team in the country. But it's just they put themselves in a tough spot this year. And that's just the way the schedule worked out. You got to win that game. You got to win that game, or you got to win the Texas A&M game. Notre Dame should have won that Texas A&M game. Like, if you guys, I don't remember. That was way back in week 2, maybe week 3. But Notre Dame had that game won, and they let it slip at their fingers, and that might have ended up costing them the season. When you see Alabama jump Notre Dame, it's almost like, oh, we got to get these numbers up. It's the SEC championship game, and we maybe need to make a path to where if Alabama loses, they can still get in. So that's just kind of my reaction. It's going to be tough to get Notre Dame in. And I'm sure if Notre Dame does get in, oh my gosh, hell is going to break loose on the internet. But the question is, do they deserve it?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting conversation because, like, the college football playoff ranking is not as much about are they the better team? It's more about do they deserve it from a record and strength of schedule perspective. I think that Notre Dame,
that for me, please.
it's not as much if they're the best team, but it's if they've earned it on the field this year. So, like, from a record standpoint, like, I think that, like, looking at the rankings, Texas is number 13. I think that they're better than Miami. I think they're better than BYU, who are both ranked ahead of them. I think that Notre Dame is ranked number 10 right now. I think they're easily at least a top 7 team in the country. I think they're better than Ole Miss, better than Oklahoma. But that's not what matters. They didn't earn it. They had their 2 chances to play against top teams, and they lost both of them. Miami didn't lose. Well, they lost to 2 teams, but they won the game that mattered, which is against Notre Dame. So we'll see how much that matters this coming Sunday.
Well, Dan, and to everybody else, I mean, at some point, it has to be, when you played that team, no matter when you played them, it has to count for something. That head-to-head has to count, right? So you can't say the argument is, oh, they're better now. Well, when they had that opportunity, and this is the unfortunate thing about college football. There's no preseason. You could do an in-game preseason. Your team against your team preseason, but that's before the crowds are there and everything. But that's why you'll see the teams play do the paycheck games. And maybe big brands like Miami and Notre Dame, or I'll even say Texas and Ohio State, probably to the benefit of both of those teams, they should have had a paycheck game. Then we wouldn't be hearing about Texas saying, well, next year we won't play them, blah, blah, blah. Well,
yeah.
How do you think Alabama feels about Florida State? It's the same thing. So anyway, but it's a good argument, but it'll all be settled Sunday afternoon. We're going to know who's going where.
Yeah. Let me add on to that real quick. Football is so obviously college football is unlike any sport in the world in which the regular season actually means something. We look at NBA, MLB, bro. It's 160 games in the MLB. It's 80 games in the NBA, and then even the NFL. You have a 16-game season, and you can afford a loss or 2 there. In college football, and plus you have preseason in the NFL. In college football, not every team is going to play each other, right? and it's full of hypotheticals, and that's why people are always arguing specifically about college football. However, in this situation, you have something on the field, and that goes in the Notre Dame, uh, Miami situation, and it goes for the Texas Ohio State situation. Sarkisian can run his mouth. Oh, we don't have to schedule these games. Da, da, da. Why do we even play Ohio State? Ohio State's not the reason why you're going to get left out of the playoffs. It's because you lost to Florida. It's because you went out to Mississippi State and had a miracle fourth quarter comeback. It's because you barely like edged out a terrible, terrible Kentucky team. Like I don't want to hear these type of arguments from these coaches. Notre Dame, I feel like it's definitely a different situation than Texas, but so I'm getting off a track on Texas, but yeah, I thought like oh maybe, but then the more I think about it and just their kind of weak wins and terrible loss to a terrible Florida team and the destroying at Georgia, I don't want to hear anything more from Sarkisian.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Listen.
Yeah, no, I can't
Let's
argue.
spend a little bit of time talking about. I'm sorry, Dan. What'd you say?
No, I'm just saying I agree. I can't argue with any of that. Yeah, no, you just that's how it is.
All right, so let's spend a little bit of time today and tomorrow. National Signing Day. It's an early period. Excuse me. And the reason why we have to talk about it because this year we'll talk about the NFL draft as part of the season. Do a like when they go down to Indy for the time trials and everything like that. Maybe the Senior Bowl. So if you're gonna talk about the end for a college athlete's career, then I think that we should spend a little bit of time talking about the beginning of a college football athlete's career. So depending if you're looking at there's three big services that do the college rankings, but generally it looks like USC is the big winner this year. Of course, we don't know if Lincoln Riley's going to be around for a long time. You know, Notre Dame's going to be a top program. It's the same usual suspects. So excuse me, I had it up here. I started looking at something else. So recruiting. All right. Yeah. So it's the usual suspects. USC. Now Notre Dame is in at number 2. I think were they number 2 last year, Dan, as well?
I don't think so. No.
They were top 5.
At
At one point, they were number 1. You're looking at Oregon, Ohio State, Texas. I looked at rivals, and I looked to see of the top 30 teams, what schools were represented in the top 30 teams. The SEC had 11 of the top 30. The Big Ten had 9. So between the Big Ten and the SEC, of the top 30 teams as far as National Signing Day recruiting, 20 of them came from those 2 leagues.
Yeah.
I thought that was just an interesting stat. So,
Yeah.
But any other comments we want to make about National Signing Day? Anybody?
Yeah, I just looked at last year. Last year, Notre Dame was 12, it says.
They ended up 12th?
Yeah.
Because I remember following them early on. They, for the longest time, they were the number 1 team. They must have lost a couple people at the very end.
Yeah. So you made the comments about earlier about like we need to follow the start of an athlete's career. When you look at these recruiting rankings, this is kind of like really like college football is a lot about talent acquisition. And when you look at these recruiting rankings, usually it tends to match up with the results that we see in the field. So recruiting is a huge part of the college game. And I think like one of the big takeaways from this recruiting cycle is USC and Oregon being 1 and 2. You kind of see like the West Coast, that area. I feel like in the past they haven't really been able to retain that California talent, but now you see like Lincoln Riley, Dan Lanning, they're really working their magic, and I think they're keeping those like top recruits from Cali out on the West Coast. So yeah, it's gonna be. I'm sure that USC and Oregon And Notre Dame, respect. Marcus Freeman really going up over there. I expect these programs to stay at the top elite level of college football.
Isn't it funny how historically you would always Notre Dame would always be at the top because they were for the longest time the only national recruiter. And now when you look at national recruiters, you're looking at Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Texas. Um, those schools are now national recruiters. They from from the Atlantic to the Pacific. So that's pretty interesting. Certain schools like LSU, probably 95% of their kids come from Louisiana. So it's interesting. I was looking at Ohio State. They got for the first time in a long time, the majority of their kids are coming from the state of Ohio. So we'll see what happens. All right, guys, just enough. That's enough on that. I mean, that's not really our thing. Let's spend a few seconds talking about the Heisman. And so it looks like these 4 people are going to be most likely invited to the Heisman ceremonies that's 2 weeks from now. It looks like it's going to be Diego Pavia from Vanderbilt, Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, Julian Sayin from Ohio State, and Fernando Mendoza from Indiana. Any thoughts on the Heisman?
Yeah, I mean,
It's become a quarterback award. So, but even though that one stat is out there that the running back wins it on the fives.
yeah, yeah. I think that streak will come to an end this year, unfortunately for Jeremiah Love. But also, there's another one. There's Jacob Rodriguez, a linebacker out of Texas Tech, another non-quarterback who's getting some buzz, but it's bad enough that he's not a quarterback, but as a defensive player, he's definitely not getting any.
They won't invite him.
No.
Dude, this guy, Jacob Rodriguez, has 7 forced fumbles. That's insane. That's one stat that's like.
Say this again. They are not going to invite him.
No, they won't. They won't. But maybe he'd be deserving. Maybe if this was 20 years ago, it would be Love, Rodriguez, and Mendoza or Sayin in the finals. But it's 2025. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. And Dan, 10 years ago, it wasn't going to happen either. There's only been 2 defensive players.
Manti Te'o was invited.
Since the 60s, from what who's the Paul Hornung? He was probably the last of the big time 2-way players to win it, and that was in the 50s.
Travis Hunter.
So you go to
Travis
Woodson in the
Travis Hunter,
non-quarterback, in
non
the 50s.
Yeah.
And when he won it, they weren't even Notre Dame wasn't even a good team. So anyway, and then Woodson in the 90s played offense and defense, and now last year offense and defense. So even 10 years ago, they weren't going to invite Rodriguez to this. I mean, Chase Young, as good as he was, or the Bosa's, they didn't get invited. They had votes, but they weren't invited. So
Manti Te'o was invited in 2012. I mean, he wasn't close to winning it. He lost to Johnny Football, but he was invited. But I agree.
How many people did they invite that year?
I think it was just 3.
No,
I think it was just the 3 of them. But yeah, no, I agree. Jacob Rodriguez is not going to get invited, but it's worth a shout out. Really, I think it's between the 3 quarterbacks: Mendoza, Pavia, and Sayin.
All right, so
I want to mention something real quick. This is a little bit off topic, but on topic. When you look at these names, you've got Rodriguez, Mendoza, and Pavia.
Hell yeah!
Shout out to the Hispanics really running college football.
That's true.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a lot of Hispanic players really working their magic, but this year, shout out.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that, but yeah, good catch.
I saw. Speaking of quirky type things, I saw one the other day. Kirk Herbstreit and Joey Galloway. They had Julian Sand on. As big of a Buckeye fan as I am, I didn't even realize this one. He's number 10, and he was explaining how he became number 10. His number has always been number 9. So when he gets to Ohio State, he becomes number 10. And at Ohio State, Rex Kern and the Super Softs from 1968, the Super Softs that won the national championship and were number 1 team all year long in 1969 until Bo Schembechler beat them. He wore number 10. Then Art Schlichter, who was the number 4 overall NFL draft pick from Ohio State, wore number 10. Then the next number 10 was Troy Smith. And that was like when I was a younger fellow, that was his man, Troy Smith. We waved at him from the crowd when they played against Northwestern when they were up there the year he won the Heisman. And now the next number 10 at Ohio State just happens to be Julian Sand. So our number 10s, I shouldn't say our, excuse me, the number 10s at Ohio State tend to do exceptionally well. So
yeah, every school got that number.
Yeah. So anyway, let's call it. All 3 of us are going to vote. I'm going to raise. Here's how I see it. It really, to me, it comes down to that one extra game. We talked about Notre Dame not having that extra game, so Love won't get a chance to showcase his talents one more time. Pavia is not on the big stage in the SEC, so last week was his shining moment, and this week we're going to see Mendoza and Sang, and this is their chance to shine against each other. I was looking at the odds. DraftKings, FanDuel had them at 160 plus 160 for Mendoza, plus 170 for Sand. So that's a neck and neck tie right there. My vote would be for Sand. Trying not to be unbiased, but that 80% passing and 3,000 yards, and what separates them are 2 touchdowns. Mendoza has 32. Sand has 30. Mendoza has 5 interceptions. Sand now has 5 interceptions. But that 80% passing percentage really gets me. And there was one other thing. The pressure rate. When Sand has been under pressure, he's still completing like 65% of his passes, as opposed to Mendoza, when he's pressured, he's down in the low 50s, like 51, 52%. My pick for the Heisman would be Sang at this point. Guys?
Yeah, I think if it was right now the voting before the conference championships, it would be Mendoza. But if we gave our predictions for the games, I think that it's really going to come down to this Big Ten championship game between those 2 guys. And I think that, like you broke down the defenses, I think Sang is just going to have a much easier time against the Indiana defense than Mendoza will have against Ohio State. So there's going to be a lot of eyes on the game. It's already a 1 versus 2 game, and it's the head-to-head matchup. So I think the voters will really take that into consideration. But, you never know. Does Sand really have like a Heisman moment? I know instantly when Mendoza had that crazy throw for the touchdown against
Penn State.
Who was that?
Penn State.
Yeah. Penn State, yeah, to win that game. That was insane, but really I think that was more of the receivers, play. But you never know, but I think it'll be Sand.
I can give you Sand's Heisman moment. It was last week against Michigan when Ohio State was down by 6, and he brought him back. Did you see what, like, he was like 2 of 5 with that interception in his first 5 passes, and the Buckeyes were down by 6, and then after that he was lights out. I think he finished the game 25 of 32, so that means he completed like 24 of his 26 passes. That's the math off the top of my head right there. So he had his Heisman moment by bringing the Buckeyes back. Anwar?
All right, I'll go with mine. So let's start off at the bottom, and we'll Pavia. Like y'all mentioned, he's not playing in the conference championship game, And in his last showing, he did go off, but he had 2 interceptions, so he's out for me. Next, number 3, Jeremiah Love. I think Jeremiah Love is, like, unlike these other guys, like the quarterbacks, I think Jeremiah Love is clear, without a doubt, the best running back in college football. And, I hope Notre Dame makes the playoffs just so we get to watch Jeremiah Love on the field again, because he's special. Like, I'm personally hoping Notre Dame gets in just so I can see Jeremiah Love play again.
Well, you'd
But
get to
he's not
see
winning.
him anyway, Anwar. If they would go, they're going to go to a major bowl if they don't get in.
But yeah, okay.
But you want to go on the biggest, brightest stage. I understand.
Yeah, I want to see him on the biggest stage.
The Citrus Bowl.
And then, like you guys mentioned, with Stan and Mendoza, right now Mendoza's in the lead, and if the season ended today, like Dan said, it would go to Mendoza. However, there's one more game, which both of them are in, and it's a head-to-head. And we already gave that pick for the game. We all said Ohio State. Because of that, like, I'm going to also go Stan as well, and that's not biased. Like, I'm doing my best to leave my fan bias out of that. But like I said, I think Ohio State is going to win the game, and yeah, he'll have a great put up. He's going to have a big game to beat Indiana. So with the win and with those great stats from that game against a really good Indiana defense, I think in the end it will be Sane, number 10.
So let me ask you a final question on the Heisman. Does it really matter? Does it mean that much to you right now? These last 2 players, because there's something bigger at stake. So is it that important to you, the Heisman this year?
Me, I don't think so. I don't really want to, denigrate these players in their seasons, but
Right.
It seems like it's a weaker class this year. Even they're both great players, the ones we've talked about, the other ones as well. But no one's been as truly dominant as in previous years. I would say Jeremiah Love has been the most. And if you're comparing their dominance, Jeremiah Love's been much more dominant as a running back than San, Mendoza, Pavia, anybody else has been a quarterback, but he's a running back. So he's not going to win it. And maybe he doesn't.
I think if Mateer doesn't get hurt and he continued the way he was playing, he would have been an excellent choice. But yeah, this year it's because of the playoffs and that game 1 versus 2. To me, that Heisman is not really as important. It's the important factor is both teams, one of them's got to win, but both of them need to come out healthy. Because if both of them come out healthy, there's a good possibility that we could see them semifinals or in the finals against each other. And I think that's what you really want to see. All right, so guys, I'm going to go off script. We had a lively conversation today about the coaching carousel. For the Thursday show, we talked about the coaching carousel. And I think we had when we last talked about it, we were talking about Kalani Sitake getting the Penn State job, right? And since then, he has re-signed with BYU at $9 million or $8 million a year. Plus, BYU has offered of their $15 million that they set aside for NIL, $10 million of that is going to go to the football team. So, final thoughts on the coaching carousel? Do you want to just let it go right now? This is our chance to talk about anything you want to talk about before we.
Yeah, you guys could probably shed more light on this than me, but there was some Ohio State news with that.
Yeah. So Ohio State offensive coordinator Brian Hartline headed to USF. Honestly, I kind of feel like this is a downgrade. I felt like Brian Hartline, with what he's done as an OC and what he's done as a wide receiver coach, he's got guys in his mentorship like Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, Chris Olave, and he's leading a top Ohio State offense this year. These big, you see Will Stein going to Kentucky, and Ohio State's put up better offensive numbers than Oregon has. So I feel like Hartline could have gotten a Power 5 job somewhere, and I'm sort of surprised about and I'm surprised by the downgrade to the group of five. However, like I wish him nothing but the best. He's going to do great down there, and USF might be a really. I don't know about defense, but yeah, they're going to have a strong offense coming up, and it definitely hurt. Like a lot of people when their coaches leave, they're like, "Oh, it's not a big deal. We didn't need him anyway." No, Ohio State definitely will miss Brian Hartline with what he's done. So I mean, Ohio State always replaces, but it's definitely going to hurt as a fan to lose a coach as talented as he was.
Okay, so you brought up a good point, and you're talking about the ability of, and so I'm going to take that in a little bit different direction because I think that most casual people look at uh, the OC or the recruiter as the penultimate person. Yes, he has to be able to communicate and develop relationships. But when it comes to Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia, also these other top teams, even UNC, because what Belichick is doing, they all have general managers. So Ohio State's general manager is Mark Pantoni, and it is his job to identify who the top players are, to make the initial contact, and then put them in touch with that recruiter for that particular area. Once they develop a relationship and they get them on board, once you are now at a school like Ohio State or any other big school, so Texas, it doesn't really matter, you're developed by the team and the culture, okay, and the other coaches as well. Yes, I think it's going to hurt to lose Hartline because he did develop a good relationship with his with the players. But I think that most people need to understand how recruitment works. It's more than just the head coach or the OC or the position recruiter that goes into it, making a decision as to whether I should go there or not. I think when you clearly Hartline fit within the structure and the culture of Ohio State. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. Hey, one more thing about the coaches unrelated to the Ohio State offensive coordinator position. We were talking yesterday about the Penn State job. We were saying who are they going to go to? Maybe they have to just go in house. There was a name we forgot. I forgot to mention Brian Dable is somebody who people have talked about. He got fired by the Giants earlier this year.
Are they talking to him now?
They are.
Not officially, but I've heard rumors that he may be a candidate.
He's a good coach.
Yeah, not for that.
Yeah, looking at the rest of the field that's available for Penn State now, Dable might be the best option.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the Nick Saban seal of approval when he was a coach at when he was the OC at Alabama. Then he's with he's the one responsible for the Bills quarterbacks.
Josh Allen.
Josh Allen's emergence as a top quarterback. Look what he did for Daniel Jones. And I think he worked real well with Jackson Dart as well with the Giants. So, I mean, I think that would be an excellent choice. Another person I was thinking of, and I don't know where this guy stands, if he wants to do this. I know he's I forget which NFL team he's with right now. I think he's with the Lions, and that's David Shaw. I mean, used to be the Stanford Cardinal coach. If I'm Penn State, I gotta get a name, because right now they got a mess. So I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I one other name that I've heard mentioned with the Penn State job. So you've got Dable, Terry Smith. I haven't heard about Shaw related to that job.
No, that's just
I've heard a lot about
Shaw out there. Huh?
I have heard the name Matt Campbell, Iowa State head coach. I think with that job, I don't know how deep there are in conversation, but Matt Campbell was definitely a hot hiring name a couple years ago, and I feel like it's kind of cooled down as Iowa State's kind of cooled down. But that's just another Penn State just needs a list of names right now because their options are just so dwindling, and I feel like at this point you would definitely still have to look at Matt Campbell as well.
Well, there's another great name out there that I'm surprised that this name has not come up more, and that's Jason Candle at Toledo. When you look at, I think that guy, because listen, who was at Toledo before him? You just said his name,
Moorhead?
Matt Campbell
Oh,
from
okay.
Iowa State, right? So, and then before him, it was Gary Pinkel, who went to Missouri. So this guy has never had a losing record. His team averages 8 wins a year. They've either played for the MAC championship. I think he's been there for 10 years. I think he's been in it 6 or 7 times. And he would have been in it this year, but they lost one of those, you know how they do those rankings for the by the computers to determine those tiebreakers. There were 3 teams. Miami of Ohio, and Toledo were the 3 teams to see who's going to play for the MAC championship, and they're the team that lost out. So if I'm looking and I want to make a splash and I want to get somebody who's a top recruiter, because Toledo has been the top recruiting school in the MAC for the last 7 or 8 years, I'm looking in Toledo, Ohio, and I'm looking at Jason Candle. Just me.
Yeah. I don't know. We were talking about like Penn State fired James Franklin to make like not a lateral move, not a down move, but an up move from already achieving coach. And I feel like a hire like Matt Campbell or the guy you mentioned from Toledo, the fans are just not going to be happy about that. And the fans don't matter, but I mean, well, no. I'm not going to say it. The fans do matter because
They do matter,
you see
yeah.
what's happening in Arkansas, and they're like literally rioting. You've seen fan bases like protest coaching hires before, and I feel like that could. You don't want to have that situation at Penn State where fans are literally rioting. Like, we don't want this guy. I agree. Like, I think that's a good name you brought up, but I just feel like Penn State fans wouldn't be happy about it.
Well, let's put it like this. It was the Penn State fans who were yelling, "Fire Franklin, fire Franklin." And guess what happened? You fired Franklin. Guess what happens? You got a shit show in Happy Valley, right?
Yeah.
Just
I mean,
saying.
they're clearly not the brightest of minds over there.
No. That goes back to another thing. Listen, I've been in business, as you know, for 45 years. And so I look at leadership. I always look at project management, and I always look at your 1, 3, and 5-year plan. And you, as a manager, and both of you guys are going to learn this in your careers, as a manager, you do not want to make rash decisions. Everything has to be thought out, and it has to be on your timeline, so your project management structure. And you have to make decisions that are in the best interest of your program, or in this case, of your program, but in business for your company, for the employees of your company, and the well-being of your company. And to me, what has happened at Penn State shows a lack of leadership on behalf of their AD craft. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
Agreed.
Are we done with everything?
I actually have one more thing to say about, not about the coaches, last thing. So, you were talking about the national championship a lot. We were talking about the Heisman race. I looked it up. There have been only 17 Heisman winners have won the national championship that year. Last one was Devontae Smith for Alabama. So, you never know. Maybe it's not. I mean, it really doesn't affect it. But interesting stat when we were talking about those.
I think Dan, can I reply to that? I feel like, I like this type of minutia. The majority of those guys were quarterbacks. And prior to the playoffs, because you had that long layoff, they used to call it the rubber chicken circuit. So you won the Heisman. Every week, you were somewhere giving a speech to some touchdown club in some city, the rubber chicken circuit. And it took you away from practicing with your team. And as a result, by the time your bowl game came around, you were fat and happy, and you hadn't worked out with your team, and you lost that edge. And so I think that's why that thing happened. But the way the playoffs are right now, so think about this. if I play this week and I lose, I win the Big Ten or any conference, right? Or no, excuse me, I'm sorry, not any conference. If I win the SEC or the Big Ten, I get a week off if I'm the Heisman winner. I get 2 weeks off, actually, because the playoffs start the following week. Then I don't have to, I get a bye, you keep going like that. So there's no chance for that rubber chicken circuit dinner for you to be on.
Good point. But yeah, we didn't talk about. Yeah, I think if Indiana loses, they're still going to be. Well, I think if either team loses, they're still going to be getting a bye. So you don't need to bring that all up again.
Either team is dropping below 4. Yeah, I think that the winner will be the 1 seed and the loser will be the 3 seed. But it'll be the winner of the SEC. If Georgia wins, Georgia will be the 2 seed, and then the loser of Ohio State and Indiana will be the 3 seed.
Say that again.
So if Georgia wins the SEC championship game, they're going to be the number 2 seed. The winner of the Big Ten championship is going to be the 1 seed, and the 3 seed will be the loser of the Big Ten championship.
Okay.
If Georgia wins. If Georgia wins.
All right, that's fair enough. Because there's also a scenario where the loser of the Big Ten could be the number 4, which means they would play each other again in the semis. They could potentially, if they're the number 3 or the number 2, they potentially would not see each other until the national championship. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today in this special edition of Talking College Football with Anwar, Dan, and Luke. We've had fun. It's been a great season. Guys, did we say we're going live Sunday?
We talked about it. We didn't decide, but we said possibility.
Okay. Look for us to be live definitely on Sunday following the announcement of the 12 teams that make the college football playoffs. So it's either going to be me by myself or we'll have the crew here. So anyway, if you like our content, subscribe. If you don't like our content, just watch us anyway. Leave a comment below and tell us why you don't.
Share with somebody who does like it. Share with somebody who does like it.
Right, exactly.
Get some taste.
If somebody does like it, please share and get them to subscribe as well. Thanks, guys. Be talking to you later on, okay?
Peace.
Go Texas Tech.
Well, that was an hour.